I've been looking at Psalm 22, and Psalm 22 is a very interesting psalm in the sense that it relates so much to the crucifixion of Jesus. It relates so much to a whole number of references that are made in the Gospels. It's a psalm that lays out this great complaint and struggle and turmoil of pain and anguish, and then moves on from there to cry out to the Lord, and then have a testimony and a story of the way in which God delivers. And I was looking recently at travel videos. I like to try and understand places and people. A travel video or a travel guide gives a perspective, maybe the tourism perspective, maybe the perspective of the particular person who's made the story. And we enter into something, and I long to make sense of that place, but then I have to ask myself the question, am I getting a clear picture? Am I just getting somebody else's view, a second-hand report? Am I able to enter into that experience? Maybe a narrative story helps me with that a little bit more, not just facts, but a sense of journeying through it. But then again, I long to actually be able to experience it firsthand. There's nothing quite like actually being there. I can get glimpses, I can get perspectives, but what about the personal lived experience? And Psalm 22 gives us a little bit of an outline of David's experience, but it also points to a greater experience of Christ on the cross. It points to that eternal struggle that we live through as individuals, but then in many senses Jesus lives through for the whole of eternity, for the moment, the crucial moment where things are turned around, and that wrestling with the powers of darkness, wrestling with the dark forces of the universe. The cross is central to that theme. And what's exciting is, like the travel writer, like the one who's been on a journey, like the one who's the pilgrim, the one who's had the first-hand experience, the one who enters into that human condition that Jesus enters into, and so much more, so completely, so totally, so utterly, fully, more than we could ever grasp. Like the great pilgrim, Jesus explains to us how that comes out with a narrative, with a story, with his resurrection power. And I want to just point to the verses towards the end of Psalm 22. And from verse 22 itself, it says, I will declare your name to my brothers in the congregation. I will praise you. And then it goes on to say in Psalm 22, verse 25, from you comes the theme of my praise in the great assembly. Before those who fear you, I will fulfill my vows. Verse 27 says, all the ends of the earth will remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations will bow down before him. And it speaks so much about this eternal, wider, greater perspective. It finishes in Psalm 22, verse 30, with posterity will serve him. Future generations will be told about the Lord. They will proclaim his righteousness to a people yet unborn, for he has done it. And all those things I kind of glossed over them, I think, in the past. But then when you put them in the context of the cross, you take them and put them in the context of this amazing, not just only a personal, individual, intimate narrative, but a story that spans a much wider landscape of people, of nations, of many people of the future. How much the cross, the story of Jesus redeeming us, dying for us, standing in our place, going through the depths of the human experience, more than that, of dealing with sin and darkness and shame and wickedness and disempowering the forces of evil, how much more this speaks to us, that is an eternal work that's done. It's finished, he said on the cross. Now, was it totally finished at that point, or is it being finished? How does that work? Some of those big questions we ask. Why do we have this ongoing tension between good and evil? Why do we have this lived experience of tension between the kingdom of heaven that we long to see happen and everything to be put right, and the brokenness and the pain of the world and everything that we experience, the struggle in our life? If life wasn't like that, then we wouldn't be able to relate to this psalm at all. But this psalm tells us about that process, that God's redemption has begun. It's on its way. It's coming to its fullness. It's been done transactionally. The great deed has been done on the cross, and that works through and is working through to come to a pinnacle, a climax, a complete fulfillment, where God brings everything under the feet of Jesus. Everything is under his authority in the end. So we think perhaps, of me as maybe an armchair traveller. Maybe I haven't been to so many places I would like to have gone to. Perhaps I try and glimpse them and understand them and grasp them as I look and dip into books, and I look at maps, and I try and make sense of what people have put on their videos and whether it's really true or not. We get all these things. These are a perspective, but they're nothing like the lived experience. And we enter into something of that suffering of Jesus. We enter into something of that journey of wrestling and living through, finding God in the middle of circumstances. And yet we still aim to see something higher, which is Jesus' complete fulfillment, what it is to be fully human and fully God, what it is to find God totally in the middle of the most darkest of circumstances, and to come out with it with a story, to come out from it with this great testimony and proclamation that needs to be told, that needs to be said to the whole congregation of God's people, that needs to be said across the earth to many nations. It needs to be said to many people, many families of nations. It needs to be testified to, give a storyline to make it clear that for many generations and even for the people to come, this is God's story, the center of God's story, of his power to redeem, his power to take us. And David just sees this glimpse into that in Psalm 22. His life is just a parable, just a tiny seed, of something that points to something greater. His story is just a glimpse into a greater purpose. He never knew how prophetic, how powerful this psalm was and was to be, how much it was going to be fulfilled through the life of Jesus, how much it is still being fulfilled. This incredible story of God's redemptive power, God's bringing back from the dead, bringing back from all the destruction, all the negative, all the sin, all the darkness. God bringing life and hope out of all those situations. God bringing purpose and meaning out of things, that a situation that seems hopeless and beyond beyond changing, beyond solving, because Jesus has come as the Savior. Jesus has come as the one who fulfills God's great plan, who comes as the one who can change things around on the most individual, personal level, in our own personal lives, in every tiny little struggle that we might be trying to process through about walking with God and following him in our hearts, so the smallest level and in a greater way, his great plan and purpose for your village, your town, your city, your nation, your people, all peoples everywhere, all generations to come, the human condition as a whole. God has got this great plan. He's got it. in his hand, this great redemptive answer to solve the desperate condition of man, to find the hope that we need, and to find that sense of purpose and fulfillment, to find that overcoming of what is evil, to overcome all the darkness, and to see the light, and to see the truth, and see the hope, and see the fulfillment of God's very, very, very best for us. So I pray today that we would enter into that journey with Jesus, that we would experience the reality of living in that land of promise with him, that we would find that hope of discovering that he knows our struggle. He really gets it. He really gets it. He's has the ultimate lived experience of someone who knows what it is to battle through. And in the context of that, he also knows that the answer, the redeeming answer of God from heaven, that brings hope, that brings healing, that brings redemption. And he also has the best story ever, the best tale to tell, the best journey of the best pilgrim, the one who really shows us the way to go. He leads us as a shepherd. I pray that today he would lead you as a shepherd and take you through on the journey that he has for you, to really unpack for you what that journey is like, with him leading you through, that he would unpack those things and make them clear in every detail, his great plan and purpose for you on a very, very personal level. So that's my prayer today, that God will bless you, help you through this psalm, and bring such a truth of revelation from it, of the incredible work of Jesus on the cross and all that he's done for you. So bless you today, and I hope that helps.